Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new podcast from Wake Up Theater. Today, we'll chat with Inaya Witowski, a Brazilian-born actor with more than 15 years acting and improvisation experience. She'll be leading our next workshop on the 14th of September. I think all of us have noticed that life frequently does not go as planned. If we're unprepared to adapt to the changes in the moment, there will be stress and poorly reasoned responses. On the other hand, if you expect the unexpected, you can learn flexibility and responsiveness and discover new and interesting possibilities. Ina points out that theater can offer the perfect place to learn and practice these skills because the consequences of failure end when the curtain closes. She will explore how the tools of improvisation and performance can help us reduce our fear of mistakes and just go for it. What's more, this self-confidence will carry over into our real lives. With that, let's get started. Well, hello, Ina, and thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
Hi, Roger.
Perhaps a good place to begin is with your family. You really have an amazing cross-cultural background, Brazilian mother, a German father, and now a Ukrainian husband. Apparently, each of them has a passion for the arts, and your sisters have carried that on in their own lives. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your family and the role they played in your own artistic interests.
So, as you said, basically everyone in my family is involved in some form of art. My father's a musician. That's how he came to Brazil too. So he was very interested in Black music, Black culture. So he moved to Brazil when he was about 30 years old to study it. That's where he met my mother, who is into literature. She's a teacher. And my sisters and me, we just had this big influence by our parents. I have one sister that is a singer, the other one is a dancer, and I just, dabbled in lots of different forms of art. So growing up, that was really a big part of our lives because I started playing the piano when I was about 4 or 5 years old, so really early. Stopped really early too, switched to other instruments over the course of a couple of years. I used to dance in different dance groups, and then in school, when I was about 14, 15 years old maybe, I discovered theater, which stuck.
Interesting that you mentioned your involvement with dance and that you started doing that at a very young age. What do you think you learned from dance that has perhaps been valuable to you in stage performance?
I think the biggest thing, the biggest value that I was able to acquire from it was just this normalcy of being on stage, of somehow, being on display too, because that's something that a lot of people struggle with. We know that public speaking is like really scary for some people, and I don't even remember the first time I was on stage. So I grew up and it was always normal for me to have this moment of preparing and then having to be ready and performing. And I think that has influenced my life in very different aspects. That's one part. And the other very important thing is, I think that you learn with every performing art or every sort of performance that you do in life that failing, quote unquote, is not the end, because it happens so often, whether it's not knowing a line or tripping and there's people watching, and in the moment it might feel like it's the end of the world, but then when you just get off the stage, you realize you're still there, the world is still spinning, and you just have to go on, and it doesn't really matter. So you somehow lose the fear of failing.
Seems like that should be obvious, and yet, as you just said, that's a very big challenge for a lot of people. They think they're being judged somehow,
And they might even be judged, but in the end, that's okay. We just move on.
Before we leave the discussion of your family, very interesting that you married a man from Ukraine.
Yes.
How did that happen?
We met at university. We have this shared love of languages, and he is also, he has a big artistic part of him. He likes to draw, and he's into photography. That's just really a shared interest of everyone that I am in some sort of another or another in contact with.
And obviously, he's been very supportive of your endeavors as well in the arts, right?
Yes, he has. Right now, he's taking care of our little kid, so I can do this podcast, for example.
So you talked about how other people react to you on the stage and not letting that bother you. But my guess is you maybe have had to deal with some real racial issues in growing up, and you've done a very marvelous job with that. Did your parents support you in dealing with that?
Yeah, definitely. So I, of course, had to deal with racism when growing up and still have to deal with today, just like any other person of color. But I was very lucky that my parents are people who are, very open-minded and culturally interested. And my mother has always been an activist for rights of all different kinds of marginalized people. I think that I have a very good foundation to build on. So because of my background, I was able not to let things hurt me as much as they might have hurt other people. I grew up around a lot of different expressions of Black culture, which is very important, I think. People say representation matters, and that's, I think, just really, really true, because we always watch our surroundings. We try to figure out what our place in society is. And if you only see people who are nothing like you around you, it's really hard to find your place and to try to fit in. And so if you have parents that show you that even if there are people who say you're worth less, so if they show you that's not true, and there are lots of people who are worth a lot, people you can aspire to, that just gives you a lot of confidence to deal with these kind of things.
Yeah, that says a lot about your personal strength for sure. One of the plays that you're in, Oscar Wilde, The Ideal Husband, was really quite interesting in that you dealt with infidelity, duplicity, gender stereotypes. You said that was one of the favorite plays that you were in. And then you played in a bunch of other roles too, dealing with cross-dressing, gender roles, and so forth. It would seem that you're really attracted to roles that force the audience to think about important but uncomfortable topics. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
The play by Oscar Wilde, An Ideal Husband, that was one of my first plays when I had moved out from home, and it was like a new found freedom for me. And it was one of the first characters that I got to try on, because that's just what it feels like to me, playing the different characters. It's like you get to try on this whole personality. You don't have to be like that in real life, but you can have like a small glimpse at a world that might be interesting. So that was a key moment for me, because it was like this necessarily very emancipated woman, but she had her own head. There was a lot lying under the surface with Mabel Chilton, the character that I played. And I think that's what I enjoy most, like playing characters that are more than meets the eye, maybe.
For me, when I've played a role on the stage that was a character that I perhaps didn't have a whole lot of sympathy for, with really giving myself to that character and trying to portray it authentically and without judgment, as an authentic human being, I ended up discovering some important things about myself that maybe I wasn't willing to face up to. And that's been really important to me, and I think in what I've personally gotten out of theater. You had any similar experiences with that, with some of the roles you played, like the ideal husband or the misogynist or others like that?
Yeah, the misogynist maybe, because the character I played in The Misogynist was this woman who, well, she was in love with the son of the misogynist, and she was trying to win him over, and that's why she dressed up as a man. That I found to be a very interesting concept, because somehow that's what we do a lot of times, not literally. We put on pants, yes, as women. We usually don't put on a fake mustache, but a lot of times we have to pretend to be something we're not, to be taken seriously. I found that very interesting to see, this kind of behavior in a play that's, I'm not sure from when exactly it was, but it's quite old. It's not like a new play now that we talk openly about these topics, but the idea has been around for so long already. So that was very interesting to me. And obviously, I noticed that sometimes I do the same. Maybe in the last years, I've started to try not to bend that much to be what other people want me to be, but it's definitely an experience that I've made personally.
Yeah, kind of experience the consequences, if you will, of taking that course of action.
Yes.
Another play that you were in a little bit more recently was Sartre's rewrite of Euripides' the Trojan Women. This is you played the role of Helen of Troy, I believe, right?
Yes, I did.
This is a really depressing tragedy.
Yes, it is.
And it represents a commentary on the costs of war seen through the eyes of women and children, which I think is a very different perspective than men usually bring to it. So how did you come to this role, and what did you learn from that?
We, as you said, usually get the version of the story of Troy that is told by men. So that play switches up the sides and looks at what all of these women had to deal with. Helen of Troy is a character that is always present in the story. She is an iconic character that usually people know if they know something about the entire story. But the way we see her is usually very dominated by this male gaze. And they say she's the reason for the war, not her husband, who actually did start a war. No, it's always the women's fault. And in the play, The Trojan Women, we get to see her side of the story. Yes, she is an iconic character, but she's very misunderstood. And that makes it very tragic, because she is often portrayed as, like, on one hand, the problem, because, as I said, she quote unquote started the war, but at the same time that she's the problem, people see her as like this sex object. She's the most beautiful woman on earth. And she's just very objectified, and nobody really cares about what she thinks and what she has to say. When I was offered the role, I had this picture of her in my head that got very changed up over the course of the play. And we usually see her as this Diane Kruger type blonde goddess. I'm not a Diane Kruger type, so that was very enticing to me to have a person of color play her. In the play, we get to see this very vulnerable side of her, and she's just a woman who's been pushed around for a lot of time, for a long time, and pushed around by her husband first. Then she lost the love of her life in the war. She is the one woman in this play who is also hated by all of the other women. So where all of the women of Troy usually stick together, at least in the misery, Helen is the one outsider who can't even count on the support of her fellow women.
Why was she the outsider, do you think?
Well, she was called a whore a lot of times during the play. The queen, Hecuba, which was the mother of, well, she's her mother-in-law, so to speak. So she's the mother of Paris, who Helen was in love with, blames her for her son's death and for bringing all of that misery upon Troy. So Hecuba, who usually is a woman who understands that women face a lot of hardship because of what men do and men think, she still picks up the same narrative when it fits her. Yeah, she's just an outcast from everywhere, basically.
Is it a little discouraging to realize how little has changed over a couple of millennia?
I think we have made progress. So yes, it might be small steps, but at least we're talking about it now. So that's very important.
I think last year you took another big leap in your artistic career in theater with trying your hand at actually directing a play, Dario Fo's stage play, No Pay, No Way. It's been translated a couple of different ways, but that's close enough. What was your inspiration to break out into this new arena, and what did you find was different in your role as a director as compared with being an actor?
So I think I improvised a little. So how that came to be was that I was in a theater group and we were looking for plays to do. I remembered that one play that I once did in school that was very relevant still today. It was about a bunch of workers who weren't able to afford their rent anymore, who weren't able to pay for food, and they started a little revolution, a very tiny one. I don't want to go into the full content of the play because it's quite complicated, but I had the feeling that in like 2021, 22, when we were still dealing with post-COVID stuff, I don't know if you still remember, like the prices of toilet paper and of oil skyrocketed. And I just felt so reminded of that play. And then I suggested to my group that we should do that play. And everybody was, yeah, great, why not? Then we asked ourselves who could direct it, and nobody wanted to do it. So I thought, why not me?
Right.
And that's how I suddenly became a director.
You're always a bit of a risk taker, aren't you, in your life?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes you just have to jump because that's all we've got. If we don't do that, we're stuck.
Yeah.
We don't move on, and I think life is about movement.
Well, I can certainly relate to that for myself. So it's a delight to see. Let's talk a little bit about the process of being a director. Some directors will find security in the script lines and stage directions, and it seems like they're almost afraid of any kind of collaborative partnership where they give space for the actors to jointly create something new and authentic. Yet the actors must also come fully prepared and knowing their script lines and their blocking. How do you see this balance between memorizing lines and creative authenticity?
The big difference between being an actor and between a director, I think, is that you, as an actor, get to focus on only one character, while as a director, you have to focus on multiple characters, which is kind of hard, I would say. honestly, if you want to, do that in a diligent way, you're going to have to get yourself some help. And the person most qualified to help you with, finding what the characters are like is the actor. The lines, script, that should at least always just be the starting point. I know that in reality, not everyone comes to the first rehearsal knowing all the lines. So, especially not if you're an amateur theater and not on professional stages. But in theory, we should come prepared with our lines in our mind and then start developing the character from there. I like to take a bit of creative liberty with these things. And I think in Dario Fo, you could see how much creative liberty he wanted the actors and directors to take, because when he put on his plays, they used to change all the time. So when he went around on tour with his group, no two soirees would be the same. So he would always change it and adapt the play to his audience, to maybe the city he was in or even the country he was in. That's only possible if you improvise.
Well, I know in my experience that the times which happen distressingly often when I forget a line or oh, what comes next, I have to improvise to get from one place to the next, or I have to improvise a response when my partner has gotten their line, that I'm told almost without fail that those are the moments when I came across as the most believable and the most authentic.
I can imagine that, yeah.
It seems in a way contradictory, and yet maybe it shouldn't be, given that we improvise our whole life, our conversations. That's what life is. Maybe it's related to that being afraid of what people will think or will make a mistake or whatever that holds us back. How can we get past that? How can we get comfortable with that? How can we see that ability to deal with the unexpected as actually our friend?
I think that we need to prepare, but in our preparation, we need to leave a bit of space so we can breathe, because things usually don't go the way we expect them to. Yeah, in theater, there are many things that can go wrong. I've tripped so many times on stage, dancing or in theater. And sometimes when the focus is on you, you just don't get to hide that. So you have to make it a part of what you're doing. In doing that over and over again, incorporating things into our performance that we did not plan to incorporate, we make new experiences. This experience that we gain is, it's like a big treasure that we can, like a big treasure chest, maybe even, that we get to pull out things from when we need them.
It's a different sense of improvisation than perhaps most people understand by that, which is, like these entertainments, whose line is it anyway, where they just do really silly things, absurd circumstances. But this is a different kind of improv that you're talking about, and obviously very relevant because this is what we're going to be dealing with in your workshop. What are some of the things that we're going to look to do to learn how to enable a more authentic and engaging stage performance with improv?
We are basically going to try to build new experiences by doing things that we hopefully weren't planning on doing. I think I said before, for me, theater is a lot of trying on characters, and the more different characters you try on, and character not as in like a role only, but different types of performance that you can try on, so to speak. As you try on these different characters, you get more comfortable with each one of them. And when you're more comfortable, because you know that you've tried on so many characters, you can relax a bit when you're on stage, because you know that even if something happens, you've tried on so many different pairs of shoes, you'll always find the right one for the situation that has arisen.
So help us to relax with the confidence that we can handle whatever comes up, even if we hadn't expected it.
Yes, because you, as I said, obviously have to prepare if you are going to do a performance. But I'd like to draw a parallel here to the music bit of my life, for example. If you're playing, no matter what kind of music, you have to learn a scale or a rhythmic pattern. When the time comes to improvise, in music, it's usually deliberate, not always, but usually deliberate. You just have to analyze the situation, and then you can draw back on what you've learned before and what you've trained. And with that set of skills, just create something new, something that wasn't there before. That's the same thing that we're going to do with our bodies and our mouths, with our lines.
I expect that you probably had a good opportunity to play with that, practice with that, with this percussion group that you've been involved with as well, right?
Yes, not only the percussion, but I've played in my school big band too. So I played a lot of jazz and Brazilian music, which usually comes with improvisation. And as you said, in the percussion group as well, when you play a piece of music that is 10 minutes long and everybody just continues playing the same thing for 10 minutes, it's not that interesting. So you have to mix it up, and there's just no way to write that, to directions for that. So you just have to improvise, obviously within the patterns, within everything that you've trained for. But without it, it would be very
uninteresting, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
or boring, if we're going to say it straight out.
Yes. Straight out boring. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and your insights, Ina. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up for today?
Just that I'm looking forward to a workshop, and I'm very excited to improvise.
Me too. All right. So take care. And boy, I am really looking forward to spending the day in our workshop together.
Me too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's it for today. Ina will be leading an acting workshop on being prepared for the unexpected, where she will lead us in an exploration of letting go of our fear of mistakes and developing the confidence that we can handle whatever comes up on the stage. For more information, please visit our webpage by clicking on the link provided in the text below. Comments and suggestions are always welcome, and like our webpage to be informed of future podcasts, workshops, and other theater activities. Have a great day and evening, and until next time.